stick it on that thing. Could have it at a jaunty angle across there.
Hello everyone, we're going to do a workshop diary, what are they called? Workshop chatter today about mullet bikes. So Starling, we obviously produce a mullet bike. This is our twist. This is my own personal twist in a nice fancy paint job on this one. So the mullet is essentially 29-inch front, 27-inch rear wheel. At Starling, we're quite lucky to do with the way we've designed our bikes. The twist is actually a Murmur front triangle, so a 29-inch front triangle with a 27-inch rear triangle. The centre portion of this bike is all the same on all of our models, so that we can put the different swing arm on the different front with no geometry compromises. Lots of brands out there are taking their 29-inch bike and just shoving a 27 rear wheel in the back and doing some kind of weird mod with the linkages to try and correct the geometry, but it tends to be a little bit of a bodge. But I get asked lots and lots of questions about mullet bikes, so I'm just going to talk about them a little bit and talk about some things that, you know, the question I get asked the most is, can I turn my bike into a mullet? So I think that's what we need to talk about. If you go on my website, there's a whole section in the tech blog about wheel size. To me, the biggest difference between wheel size is to do with gyroscopic stability. So imagine you hold the wheel in the front, hold the front wheel or hold a wheel and spin it, and it's how stable it is to move out of plane. If we hold it by the axle and spin it up, and obviously it's spinning much faster, but how hard it is to move out of plane like this, that's on a bigger diameter wheel. The forces required to do that are much higher than they are on a 27. It's proportional to an R squared term. So the 27 or 29 squared divided by 27.5 squared, or it's about 27 squared, gives you the difference. It's about 10–15%. And that's more proportional than other changes. So if you put smaller wheels on, it's easier to lean it over, and it's easier to move it. It's especially easier when people are whipping bikes and doing stuff like that. But then when you're going through rough terrain, it gets kicked offline easier. So the bigger wheels, the reason people think they roll better is that they track better. So if you're riding through rough terrain, they just stay in line better. And that is the difference between 29 and 27-inch bikes. And also it means if you want to lean the bike over, it's harder work to lean a 29 over than it is a 27. But once you've lent it over, it's more stable and it sits there. It stays in that position. So they're fantastic for drifting 29ers because you can lean them over and they just stay there and they keep drifting. So the different wheel sizes, to me, suit different riders. As somebody who, like me, I don't move around that much. I carve lines. I sort of try and just plow through stuff. The 29er kind of suits me. Whereas James next door, our mechanic, he likes to move the bike around lots, and he likes the 27-inch wheels, and Ollie as well. Ollie in particular, who never goes in a straight line. The 27 suits him because he's constantly moving the bike and hopping it and popping it and moving it. So I think what people think is that the mullet bike, which is between those two, is a golden ticket. It allows you to track through the rough stuff and be manoeuvrable. No, it isn't. It isn't a golden ticket. It is a midpoint between the 29 and the 27. So if you're, it's tricky. I think what's happened is lots of EWS racers have started using them, World Cup downhillers have started using them, so everyone thinks they must be better. But to me, they're not better. It's a midpoint. So if we get that right, we can then sort of talk about the technicalities a bit. So there are to me some things where a mullet kind of makes sense. It's easier to get more travel out of a mullet because the smaller rear wheel gives you more clearance as the swing arm moves through. It also gives you more kind of arse clearance. So as you're dropping off stuff, if you've got shorter legs, you tend to hit your rear wheel on your bum. So the 27 wheel is good for that. In particular on my bikes, the Murmur with a 29-inch rear has actually got a 445 chainstay whereas the Swoop and the Twist with the 27 rear have got a 435 chainstay. So the shorter chainstay again makes the bike a little bit more manoeuvrable on the back. You can move it around a little bit more. It also balances the different front triangles. So if you're on if you're on an XL with a long front triangle, I think definitely you want a 29-inch rear with the longer stays. If you're on a medium, I think probably the Twist is a more balanced bike. So that the shorter front triangle more balances the shorter thing. The large, I think it's a little bit halfway between. So really, depending on the size your bike might probably be more important about the back end you want to do with balance. So hopefully that explains the differences between the 29, the Mullet and the 27. Pick what kind of rider you are. Are you a smooth carving rider? Then you want the big wheels. Are you a person who moves the bike around loads? Then maybe the shorter rear ends will work. If you really move it around, then the 27 will work. But it's not a Twist in itself, a Mullet in itself isn't going to make you better. Riding the bike that suits your riding style the most is what will make the bike better. So don't think, oh, all the pros are running Mullets, I need to run a Mullet. Think, oh, what type of rider am I? That's the important thing. So that's those explained. Then we come on to the question of how do I turn my existing Murmur into a Mullet bike? How do I turn my existing Swoop into a Mullet bike? So if you had a Murmur, it is actually very easy just to put a Swoop swing arm on and that turns it into a Twist. No geometry compromises. Essentially this rear axle position moves, and we've talked about that in another video actually. There's no geometry compromises. Unfortunately, we haven't got enough stock of Swoop swing arms to go selling swing arms on the own. If we sell a swing arm on its own, we lose the profit of a full bike sale, and we haven't got enough stock to do that. So unfortunately, you can't turn your Murmur into a Twist. Maybe some point in the future, but not now. So therefore, you're left with kind of bodge solution. So the bodge solution is, can I just take a Murmur and put a 27 rear wheel in the back? If you do that, the rear axle position here drops down 20 mil, so your whole bike slackens off, the bottom bracket drops. So if you're dropping 20 mil at the rear axle, the bottom bracket is like a third of the full length, so you're going to lose about 12, 13 mil of bottom bracket drop. So you end up having what's already quite a low bottom bracket, a very super low bottom bracket. So I never recommend to anybody just sticking the wrong size wheel in a bike. People do it and they love it, but I think the reason they love it is that they've got a different bike, and in their heads they believe it rides very differently because they've changed it, and they've totally changed the geometry, and they believe that in their head it's a placebo effect. Oh, it rides great because it's lower and stuff. Yes, it might do, but I don't think in the long run they'll ride on very well on it for a long time. You've got to keep the geometry correct. So some people have been bodging Murmurs by putting smaller rear wheels in. We do have some bikes with adjustable adjustable shock mounts. There is a little bit of room for manoeuvre to steepen the bike up and raise it, but not that much, not enough to correct for the 20 mil drop here. So generally the adjustable shock mount won't let you do it. The other way round of taking a Swoop, a 27-inch bike, and putting a 29-inch wheel on the front will never work. A 27 wheel is, you've got 20 mil difference in axle height, you've also got a 20 mil difference in fork length. So because it's running a bigger wheel, the fork actually has to be longer. So you end up with a 29-inch fork and wheel. At this point, it's 40 mil longer than there's a pop from the gas. It's 40 mil longer than a 27 equivalent. So if you put a 40 mil longer fork or front end on your Swoop, it's just going to slacken it way out and raise the bottom bracket. It'll ride crap. You could run a 40 mil shorter fork, but if these are running 160 and you're dropping it to 120, you're changing the bike. You upset the suspension balance. So in summary, no, you can't bodge it. No, you can't. You're just going to cock it up. It will never ride as well as a Twist, which is a Mullet with no compromises to the geometry. And the Mullet in itself isn't going to make you a better rider. It isn't the golden ticket. It isn't going to ride amazingly. It's just a midpoint between the 29 and the 27. And you need to decide what type of rider you are before thinking the mullet is going to make me better. Just because the pros ride them, I don't think really means that much. They can ride anything. So hopefully that makes sense. No doubt you'll have questions. Send me some questions. Let me know what you think. Yeah, bye.